Well, hello, Liberty listeners. Welcome to another episode of Liberty Road. Today, you guys get to hear from Kelly Nutt. And Kelly is an interior designer in the Orange County area. She lives in Newport, but she works all over the place. And we're excited to hear how she got started with her own design firm, her background, and maybe even pick up a few tips. Welcome to the show, Kelly. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's just start with your design firm. How did you start as an interior designer?
Well, years ago, out of college, I worked for Ralph Lauren, and that being around all the beautiful aesthetic and some of the talented people, I knew that working around beautiful things was just something that really interests me. Back then, it was retail. I was fortunate enough to work with many people that did the design. It started kind of developing from there. My mom did it for a little bit, and that was great. So I've always kind of been around it, and it's always been an interest of mine. So that's kind of where it started initially. And then working there, I ended up running one of the Barclay Butera stores and did that. And then just from there in relationships, it just kind of developed into that. And it's just been a wonderful journey for me.
What about working as a designer? Did you feel like matched your strengths? You knew that you liked it. You knew that the aesthetic part felt important to you and you wanted, again, to be surrounded by beautiful things. But what of that work matched your strengths as far as you knew at the time?
So at the time, it's just the relationships and helping people throughout and kind of having your hand in something that you're passionate about. So later, when I was able to, know that that was the path that I wanted to take, the opportunities, kind of built from that. Um, and I would say my strengths of, in this industry, it's a very relationship based. So as you are, from my younger years and working with people, small or big on different areas of design, that started kind of putting everything in motion that this is in fact something that I would want to do. And when you kind of slow and steady build upon, kind of what's working and where you want to be, you'd be real surprised on what, the capabilities are. And I think that's the most special part of it is just a slow and steady of whatever, you're interested in. For me, I love the personal touch of how people live and that. And it really starts with a relationship. And I even find with my current employees, people that come from a retail background and service oriented, they have so much to offer because it's a relationship.
Yeah.
So I love that part of the industry.
And I think key to you saying it's a relationship, it's not just making friends quickly. It's serving
Right.
people, right? It's how do you serve people, being a good listener. How do you
Right.
take what they're saying to you and digest it into terminology that's going to fit into creating this home for them, right? Reading between the lines.
That's
So
right.
when you say relationship, it's all the things.
And it's also just like you're saying, is listening, but also understanding how people live and, emulating that to where it represents the home that represents them, but also giving them the direction of what it takes to just represent how they live and how I don't know how to say it better other than as you build a relationship with them, you learn more how they live and what you can do to represent. So it represents their own style.
Yeah. Yeah. And it represents their own style, but also they're hiring you. So there's something about you, your aesthetic, your ability to weave things together throughout the home, whether you're doing one room or several rooms, and you have to
Right.
match something that has already been done or make it fluid. Um, So there must be a sense of confidence that you're going in and saying, well, they're hiring me. There's a lot of designers
Right.
out there and they're hiring me. So there's something about me and what I offer that they want. How do you kind of walk that line of what they're looking for, the way they live, and tying in the Kelly Nutt piece of it?
Well, I find that in this industry too, people reach out to people that have similar aesthetic. And our aesthetic, I would say, is a timeless and
Mm-hmm.
classic aesthetic. So we do have projects where it might be a little more contemporary or that, but we're still marrying those two elements of a timeless classic aesthetic and providing a house that can stand the test of time, represent how they live. But of course, we do push what we suggest and recommend in creating that space because that is why they're hiring us, right?
Sure. Sure.
So that kind of it all kind of blends together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I would say definitely people are our clientele and people that reach out to us are someone that is looking for a timeless, kind of established home, if you would. So a lot of times we'll marry in some of their existing furnishings in some cases. If it's a second or third home, we're obviously starting from new, but kind of keeping that whole feeling of that timeless, old, new, and marrying the two to create the warmth is really kind of, I would say, our aesthetic.
From looking at your website and kind of studying some of the homes that you have on there, you have a very layered aesthetic too,
We
right? Like
do.
what you're bringing in seems like it's pieces from their history. Maybe it's pieces that you've found for them, antiquing or whatnot. But it feels layered. It doesn't at all feel like somebody went into one or two stores on a given Sunday and made all the decisions. It looks like it's happened and unfolded over time. Would you say that's
Right.
a hallmark of Kelly Nutt?
I would. And it's one of my favorites, I have to say, because as you know, construction takes a little bit of time. And with the construction, that whole process, we work really hard as a team of keeping that house in mind. And so we'll start, like even right now, all around me in my office, we have different found treasures that are going to be going in a project that's
Mm,
maybe just not right around the corner. And we really truly work on buying stuff that we love. And if it doesn't work in that project, we definitely will have a home for it
have another home for
because
it.
we like to buy and purchase even stuff that we personally love and wish we had.
Man, how fun to get your shopping on, but then also not necessarily how, somebody else is sort of paying for it
That's right.
eventually at some point,
That's right.
So you talked a little bit about your strengths and why you were a match for going into interior design after your history um, or your experience in retail. What was difficult for you? What were some of the gaps that you found where you're like, I'm not really made for this. This isn't the way I show up best in the world. And how did you accommodate those gaps so that you could run a successful firm?
Well, I will tell you when I first started, just like most people, I would think you kind of start not as a one man show, but when you start building and something starts kind of jiving, you start realizing, wow, I do need like somewhat of a team. Like I need to. I'll never forget. I worked in a little corner in my master bedroom for a really long time because I'm like, I'm gonna go for this, and I was given certain opportunities, which were amazing. And I had someone kind of come in here and there, and I remember it was that moment when one of the gals that worked for me, she said, "You really kind of need to get someone in here to help you." And I was like, "Really? I've got this." But then once I realized, kind of developing a team, knowing that this was building, knowing that the opportunity was there, I definitely took that risk, got some people helping me. Down the road, I then got an office. And those were strong challenges for me because with anything, there's a little bit of fear that comes in like, wow, I'm about to spend this money on an office. I'm about to be responsible for this.
Yeah.
Can I do it? And absolutely, it's kind of crazy when you just put your head down and learning, to delegate, learning to build. So I think even though I was getting the clients, you still need that whole kind of engine behind, you
Sure.
know? Getting the client is one thing, but then expediting and doing, the job to where you want it to be because it's just it takes a village. It really does.
It does, and it's a different skill set to go in and decide that you want to be a designer, to run that business, to own it from your bedroom, doing it all yourself. You
Yeah,
had your hands in everything. It's altogether a different thing to then bring on a team. And now you're not just responsible for the work that you're doing with the client, you're responsible for this team and putting systems into place. You
right.
talked about, um, uh, giving people the opportunity to kind of step into those roles. And it's not just delegating. You actually have to get, you're sort of like biting your fingers, like, can
Yeah,
they do it? Do I want to give this up? This is my baby. This is my
that's right.
name. I'm taking money from these clients. And there's a lot of learning in growing a team, and it takes a different skill set, like I said. And I think some people have an appetite for it and are able to do it. Some people don't, which brings me to my next question, which is a lot of women listening. Well, let me back up. There's two things you said that I wanted to hit on. You said when you first started, it was different and you were helping people just move around things that they already had in their house. Were you hinting at a time when people weren't buying or building? Is this a 2008 sort of
This is like kind
situation?
of a 2008. Like I
Yeah,
said, I've even told my daughter who now works with me, always have your hand in something because as we evolve, just getting older, our changes in our lives, like where it takes a dual income or whatever it is, it's just always nice to have your hand in something, my personal opinion. So that was partially lacking, I would say, in the industry because people with the design industry is, everyone, thinks it's always all glamorous, but there's
hmm,
also times where you just emulate and not emulate, but just go in, help people move things around, bring small accessories, kind of revamp a certain space. And then when the time is right, when people are able to do more, then, you have positioned yourself where you're helping them
sure,
with where they are, where the
sure,
times are, and acclimating to the times. And I think that's true for any business. It's like reading a client, reading the times. We've built a great business. I've built a great business with the people that work for me, my vendors. Like, again, it's all these people that make Kelly Nutt Design, my relationships with my vendors, my staff. And then that being said, like I said before that, it's just building that rapport with clientele is also conforming to where they are because everyone's different in their scope. Sometimes we're refreshing a project that we did 5 years ago, but you still want to keep that door open, right? It's
yeah.
not, it can't be just too big where we're just doing this new construction, like, oh, that's not big enough or good enough. I think when you can do that as you're building or maintaining. Those two really need to coincide.
Yeah, you're reminding me of kind of a concept in business that people will talk about, kind of how much it costs, the cost of acquiring a customer. So, for example, Starbucks might say, well, in order to get our first Starbucks user in the door, I don't know who doesn't know about Starbucks anymore, but in order to
Right.
get that person, it costs us about $12, right? $12 in advertising, $12 of, somebody giving them a gift card, $12 of promoting the brand to them before they actually come in the door. Part of what you're doing in taking small jobs is the cost of acquiring a customer, a big scale customer, because
That's
you're
right.
saying yes to, let me come in and zhuzh some things up. Let me come
Right.
in and let me recommend a color of paint or wallpaper or sconce or whatever, something that's small. But it's not too small, because that's the beginning of that relationship building that you talked about being so important in the beginning. And now, when that person is ready to do something that's bigger, Kelly comes to mind. Kelly's the person
Right.
that has already served them. And if it didn't work out, if they didn't like your taste, you've already vetted them too. And you've said, you
That's
know
right.
what, that's not a client that we want to move forward with when the numbers are bigger and the problems are bigger.
That's
So
right.
it's
That's
both
so
and.
true.
It's an opportunity to think about what does it cost to acquire a customer, but it's also an opportunity to think about, do I want to work with this person? Because we're going to
Right.
be in bed together for a long time. I'm bringing my
That's so
entire
true.
team into this situation.
That's so true. And I'm sure a lot of people can say this, but particularly in this business, it's a long term relationship. And as people are interviewing us, we are interviewing them in a
Yeah.
sense. We're not cruising around being like, no, we won't
Sure.
take that. But we are keeping our eyes open to what's a nice fit, um, moving forward
Yeah,
in
it's a personal
communication.
relationship with an
It is.
interior designer, and I think that it's a two-way relationship, and the more comfortable you are with one another, the more the expression in the end will be fulfilled, right? They'll be happy,
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
yeah, putting
Yeah.
forth what they wanted in their vision, and you'll be happy giving them that version of what they want to be living in. I started to speak ahead, and I want to circle back to that, but you were talking about the things that were easy for you, that kind of were a fit for your talent. We talked about the gaps and how you filled that by creating a team. What do you say to the women who are listening, who are in their middle third, 40s, 50s, 60s, thinking
Hmm.
about, parlaying one experience into another, perhaps coming back from a gap nobody has a working gap. We've all been working at something, but maybe a paid
Yes.
for
Right.
gap, and they're thinking about interior design. They're thinking about entrepreneurship. What do you want to say to them? Hey, be aware of this. Watch
Right.
watch out for this, and maybe do your homework on this
Yeah.
thing. What's some
Yeah.
advice you can give there?
Well, I think it's really important if you are interested in it to work within the industry, even, someone that you admire in the industry. And that is the beauty of this industry. There are so many amazing people in this industry. And, I don't know anyone that couldn't use an extra set of hands, whether it's an install or, there's just so many moving parts in it. And just getting familiar with it or working in a showroom or any part of the industry, just, exploring what it is. Because I think a lot of time people think it's just shopping all the time or it's just that, there's a lot more to it. But kind of just seeing how systems work, whether it's working for a designer or a showroom, and being amongst it and just seeing if it's a fit for you. But kind of just really going for it because
Yeah.
there's just so much opportunity. There's so much room for everybody. And that's another wonderful thing, And a lot of the times, I don't think like we had a young gal that had helped us and has just recently moved, and she had never been in this industry. And she just added so much, just not only her attitude and she really had a talent with textile. And even that just coming in and you start realizing like kind of what your secret talents are by, just launching yourself into it
Yeah.
and working for someone and showing them, how you can help and what you can bring and you being around it. It's amazing what people are able to bring to the table. Because I can honestly say I learned so much from, the people that I work with every day. And so I really think just getting somehow into the industry, going to work with someone, and learning a little bit about it, and what you want to do. Because there's so many areas in it that you can do.
Sure. You might think that you want to go into design like you,
Right,
kind of full service, and might
right,
realize I just want to curate things on Pinterest for people or whatever. I
right,
love that
right.
piece of it. And that can be a business.
And
That
that's great
absolutely
too.
can.
You kind of learn more what you want. I've had several people that have come and worked for me, and they're like, I never want my own, but I love being
Hmm.
part of a team. So I think it's so great to just go for it. Like if something you're interested in it, um, I think that whole stigma of what I majored in and
Yeah.
what my experience that's gone. I think it's more listening to you and what would make you happy. And I really do feel like if you're happy doing something, you're pretty much a success in some degree, and
Yeah.
then you could take it to where you want.
One, you're probably pretty good at it if you're happy doing it. We're
Yeah,
rarely happy doing something we're not very good at.
that's
And
right.
and then the other thing is it requires tenacity and a kind of stick to it tiveness, however you would say that.
Yeah,
It requires that. And if you're happy doing what you're doing, you're more likely to hang in there. And so the success of people who are happy doing what they're doing, it's not, I think often we hear that and we think, oh, what a selfish way to look at it. Sometimes we just have
right.
to bring home the bacon. I'm not
Yeah,
sure that that's what is meant by that. I think what's meant by that is when you're happy doing something, when you love the work that you're doing, you're actually going to be more creative. You're going to find solutions. You're going to be better at strategizing to fulfill whatever the end goal is. You're going to hang in there longer. I think those are the reasons why we should find something that we love. I know you probably say this. I know you have your daughter who works with you, but I know I say this to my kids as they think about what's post-college life look like. Being happy
right.
with your work is more than it's more than just a wouldn't that be lovely if that coincided. I
Right.
think it's an important part of the puzzle. There is a French term. I don't know what it is. It's in the culinary world. And it's basically when a young wannabe chef calls a restaurant and says, let me come and work for you for free. It's part shadowing, part chopping opportunity, right? Like
Hmm.
I'll wash dishes, I'll do whatever. Let me get behind the scenes. And
Hmm.
often it's how these people figure out if that's really what they want to do with their lives. And I feel like we need to have that as we enter this season of life where we're trying to figure out what's next. No one wants to go back and intern, but gosh, wouldn't it be great if we could
Yeah,
find a way to test out things and try things and say, "Hey, let me come in for a couple weeks and shadow you. Let me do the dishes or sweep the floors just
yeah,
so I can see what it's like and if it's something that I would like
yeah,
to do." And so I appreciate so much you saying that preparing yourself to go into running your own business, going into design is just kind of figuring out what it's like, what that world is like,
right,
and if it is a good
right,
fit.
right. I so agree. And I just think it's kind of funny not to get too into it, but my daughter, when she graduated from SC,
Yeah.
she has a little side hustle where she cooks and bakes. And when she graduated from college, she went to that Juice to Bakery and
Yeah.
got a
Oh,
job um, as a pastry chef. Never worked in like a commercial type kitchen, which I'm like, Caroline, oh my
good for
goodness.
her.
Like,
That's
and so she did
awesome.
it, but it was amazing. And I was thinking to myself, first of all, she met amazing people. She saw the work ethic of these people that have been there for years.
Yeah.
They're probably, you know, not only so talented, but taught her so much. And that's what's so lovely. It's just like, you can kind of push that go button on anything once you kind of feel what you can offer. I think so many people think they have to have that plan in place. It's just exposing yourself to the opportunity.
Yeah.
And the opportunity comes. If you don't expose yourself, you don't find it.
Amen. Yeah. You got to just start. And I think your idea of, or your comment about not having a big plan. It's just putting one foot in front of the other and kind of seeing
Right.
what doors and windows open. Just take
Right.
that step, and all the planning in the world can be thrown out the window because of
That's right.
circumstances or whatever. So just take that next best step, and you will end up where you belong. But you've got to begin. You've got to be the one
You
that
just, yeah,
initiates all of
you
it.
have to start somewhere. I mean, I know it's so cliche, but like I said, there's so many people, obviously having their homes and needing help in some capacity, and there's room for everyone.
Yeah,
And for me and what I do, when you hear everyone's busy, that's when I feel the most secure in my own job, to be totally candid,
yeah.
because that's what you want. You want everyone busy, the contractors, the designers, my competitors. I mean, that's where, and it's so nice. I would say this industry, people cheer each other on. It's a nice environment.
That's lovely
It's a
to hear.
really,
It's
it
lovely to
is
hear.
nice.
And I think your attitude and embracing that idea of abundance versus scarcity is kind of what lends to that. Like there's enough here for all of us. We all have a story to tell in the way that we interpret a home, in the way that we offer
Yeah.
ourselves up, put our stamp on something.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing for our listeners to hear. For those who are interested, whether it's interior design or whatever, that there is something out there for you. But you do just have to start. Um,
Right.
Go back a little bit to when you first started Kelly Nutt Design. How old were you? Do you mind me asking when you started?
Yeah. So I would say it really took off at like 47,
Okay.
you know? Um, but again, slow and steady, not knowing where it's going to go. And I still say today, if you're only as good as your last client. So if for some reason I couldn't sustain, like I would work for someone. You know what I mean? You don't,
Yeah.
you have my, I know it sounds crazy, but it's just, I don't know. You just keep going and you don't know what's in store and different times. Um, but the opportunities definitely are there. And we do a lot of repeat clientele. We have clients that have bought homes all over the country. So we travel quite a bit and we do a lot locally. And that opens a whole nother, you know,
I
arena, which is
must keep
nice.
things interesting.
It
I
does.
I appreciate how much you have this sort of hold on loosely approach, and it's probably what has made you successful, both in talking about your daughter and saying, "Hey, go get that job at Justa, like go try something new," all the way to you saying, "I could work for somebody else. Like I don't know what the future holds," and I think the ability to do that just allows life to bring things into your palm when you're kind of when they're open like that, right?
I
And
kind of feel that way. I
yeah,
know that sounds silly, but
no,
I kind of do feel that way.
I'm getting that from you.
And I'm not
Absolutely.
being like aloof, but I don't know anyone that, we always look at our pipeline, we look at what we have. We've been very fortunate and it's continued to be really great. But just, paying attention to those things and opportunity and, it's okay if it slows down 1 second. We haven't had that in a long time, but that's okay too. You acclimate.
It's interesting to hear you say that and to be able to view that through that lens, to just kind of have this, it's all meant to happen and unfold as it does. Is that what a 30-year-old Kelly would have done? Or how much of this has come to
You know what?
you
I
just
absolutely
with
not. I
experience?
would
Yeah.
say in my 30-year-old Kelly would be like, oh my gosh, like I think I'd be
The
definitely
sky's
more
falling.
panicked.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it would be like, oh my God, I'm not going to do this. And I think, don't get me wrong, I get stressed, but the 30-year-old, I would just, oh my God, like I can't have someone else help or I can't, but just, you're obviously being responsible financially. What you can do and can't do is imperative at any stage. But just, I think now I'm like, okay, you know, we're doing great. And if in fact anything shifts, it's still great. It just, but the 30-year-old is like, everything has to be bigger than the last. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
almost like you just think you're not successful if it's not hitting at all of that. But then now it's so funny how I look back at how I viewed things as opposed to, and I'm not lax, like, oh, it's going to come out of nowhere. I mean, I know it's the relationships I built, but there are sometimes things are worth waiting for, and sometimes things don't happen exactly like, my 30-year-old self would be like, oh, I'm done with this. Now what?
Yeah.
So I think just kind of, I don't know. I don't care what age you are, you just put your head down
Yeah.
and you can be really surprised at what can happen.
Yeah. Yes. You do put your head down at any age, but I'm going to challenge what you just said really quickly because I actually think what you're saying to us is like it's a gem of advice for somebody who is in this stage of life to launch something, to do something, to try something new, to pursue that dream, to make the most of those talents, because I actually think we come so well equipped at this time in life to do the thing that we feel like we were called to do. And what you're talking about, or the way you're talking about it, is kind of a case in point, that you're able
Right,
to hold on loosely, that you're able to see success as a string of things versus the last big deal that you did. That
right,
you're able to invite people into your process, that you're able to take on large projects, but no project is too small. All of
right,
that uh, wisdom is what's informing how you run your company. And this is why when I hear people saying, I need to hang it up, I need to give up, I'm too old. I'm like, no, you actually are,
no,
you are just hitting your
no,
stride. And,
yeah.
and you've made such a great case for that. And I appreciate you sharing all of that. What about your journey in launching and growing Kelly Nutt Design has liberated you, the woman?
I think honestly, just realizing that you can do anything you put your mind to. And just, I think sometimes when you think things are so tough, or, is this for me? No matter what you're doing, it feels liberating to me to see something that I've built slow and steady. It wasn't overnight. And I still feel like there's so much more to build. And it's liberating to me because I feel like it just continues to grow in different ways. And over the years, if someone would have told me, I remember sitting in my bedroom thinking, this is perfect. This is fine. I can have other people remote. If someone else comes, they could be at my dining table. And then you start inching along and you're like, wow, I have an office. And it's, you feel um, just kind of, like I said, slow and steady, just moving. And it's liberating to see what I was capable of
Yeah.
and what can be
Yeah.
and what will be, right? I don't know what's next. I hope to have a book out, working on stuff like that, and just loving what I do. And just, it's liberating to know that I have embraced in something that I have made it what it is today. I feel very proud of it. And again, I just feel so grateful for it. It's been lovely. And I really think, like I said to you earlier, I think if someone is interested, I just think that just diving in, whether it's design or anything, it's just you bring so much to the table with your own personal growth and whatever you've done, even if it's raising a family.
Yeah.
There's so much that people can bring to the table. I think I have quite a few friends that have stayed at home, and then they're definitely, wow, I I've always loved art. I want to work at the Museum of Art. I want to do that. And I know some people that are doing it and feel so fulfilled, and they're so talented. They bring so much. So just because maybe you've been under the radar, or you've been working in a different capacity, raising a family, it's still work, way more work in a lot of
Absolutely.
ways. But there's
Absolutely.
also there's so many times that you can pivot. And it may not be your first thing that you explore is what you want to do. And that's why we try.
Yeah.
And that's why we do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love, because you don't have to know exactly even what it is.
Just take that step. Just take that
Right?
step. Yes.
Right.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Kelly. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing the steps that you took and your
Yeah. Thank
journey,
you.
and for making it so accessible. I feel like people are going to listen to this and say, yeah, I listened to this podcast with Kelly Nutt and I think I can. I think I can.
Good.
Thank you for that. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Liberty listeners, thank you guys for hanging out with Kelly and with me. We'll have all of Kelly's handles and website and all the ways you can get a hold of her in the show notes. So definitely check her out. And Kelly, when you have that book come out, come back on the podcast, okay?
I will. Thank you.
All right. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye for now.